Hey everybody, welcome back to Low Life Plays. Here's another deck tech. This one's going to be on the Fallout series here. Got the Wise Mothman. Super fun character from 76, and just love the whole lore behind Mothman, so he really stood out to me when I was looking at the Fallout decks. So really had a good time building this. I think I finally got it to a state where I'm happy to present it to, everybody else. See kind of what their thoughts are. Had a chance a few days ago to finally run it, some test plays. I was having some difficulty trying to figure out where the deck leans. There's a lot of different strategies with mill, +1/+1 counter focus, rad counters. I think there's a decent balance that still feels a lot like maybe you souped up the original game plan a little bit. So let's just jump into this. So the Wise Mothman, he's 1 in Sultai. He's a 3/3 flyer, and when he ETBs or attacks, each player gets a rad counter. So, rad counters are explained on these little tokens here. At the beginning of your pre-combat main phase, if you have any rad counters, you mill that many amount of cards, and then for each non-land card milled this way, lose a life and a rad counter. So really cool stuff, which synergizes with the second part of the card, where whenever one or more non-land cards are milled, just milled in general, you put a +1/+1 counter on each of up to X target creatures, where X is the number of non-land cards milled this way. So you can buff up your board, swing through with these giant creatures. Hit himself just being a 3/3 with evasion already. And when he ETBs, everyone's going to have one already. It's super fun, and I had a really good time getting to play him. So let's jump into what the deck does. So, getting right into some of the upgraded cards are going to be Bloodchief Ascension. So, this one is at the beginning of each end step. If an opponent lost 2 or more life this turn, you put a quest counter on Bloodchief Ascension. Whenever a card is put into an opponent's graveyard from anywhere, if Bloodchief Ascension has 3 or more quest counters on it, you can have that player lose 2, and if you do, you gain 2. This is really a killing card. That's what this is in here for, is to combo with some of our other cards, but it's so easy to get it to 3. 3 is like nothing. Even if you get 1, we have proliferating effects, so we can get it to 3 no problem, but it is a May trigger, so remember, the May, that can be something your opponents can hold you to, especially with a nasty card like Bloodchief Ascension. Leading us into Mind Crank. So Mind Crank is super crazy. Those two just will kill somebody. Whenever an opponent loses life, that player puts that many cards from their top of their library into their graveyard. Oh, you lost life? Oh, look at that. Whenever a card is put into a graveyard from anywhere, you're going to lose life. Oh, you lost life. You're going to put that many cards into your graveyard. That will loop and kill everybody. So, super fun. And then this is just a good piece to have out with all the rad counters. They're going to lose life, mill more cards, Mothman gets bigger. Just benefits both of our strategies. Sir Conrad the Grim. He's in here because of not whenever a creature dies, that helps, but it's really here for whenever a creature is put into a graveyard from anywhere other than the battlefield, or a creature card leaves your graveyard. Not super important, but really that second clause there, it's going to deal 1 damage to each opponent. So while you're milling creatures, you're dealing damage. And then if you have that out in Mind Crank too, it's nuts. Alright, Cankerbloom. This is in our removal suite here. He's just so flexible. Also, the Phyrexian foiling, I really enjoyed it. I don't know about you guys, but man, I pulled these and I was like, that is some sick little stuff going on. But either way, it's a 2-mana 2/3, and you can pay 1, sack him. He can destroy an artifact, an enchantment, or if you need to proliferate, you can do that to keep your rad counters up. Really cool. Putrefy, just classic, and I tried to keep as many of the Fallout cards as I could and still have a good thematic deck that worked well. And I feel like it did it pretty good, because Putrefy is just good anyway. So, but either way, it's an instant, destroy target artifact or creature, can't be regenerated. Casualties of War. I got the foil in the 2-card promo pack thing that came with the Precon. So I was like, all right, I'll slot that in. It's really, really high costed, but this is more of a thematic ad than anything, and it does hit a lot of stuff. So you can blow some stuff up, and it has the War Never Changes text, so really nice. Pest Infestation. I pulled this out. This is something I'm trying. This is one of the newer decks I've actually got around to building and playing. So I'm testing out Pest Infestation to blow up a lot of artifacts. It's target artifacts, so it's not like an X and below, so that's nice. You can blow up everyone else's rocks or everyone else's problem pieces. And you make twice X/1/1 pests that just die. So it helps you create a wide board state, because I found in this deck you're often going tall. So it's nice to have an option to blow stuff up and go wide. Reality Shift. Exile cards, man, and it's got our baby Ugin. Love that man. So, reality shift stuff. Exile creatures. Beast Within, gotta have flexible removal. You know, destroy target permanent, you gotta have it. Someone's gonna run that Glacial Chasm, and you're gonna hate if you don't have something to destroy that land. So that's another reason we run stuff like this. Nuclear Fallout, excellent card from the precon here. You know, each creature gets twice -X/-X, and then each player gets X rad counters, which super cool. You know, it does everything we want to do. It can wipe the board, and our creatures are often going to be so big that they'll probably survive the wipe, and then just distribute more rad counters. Do the thing we want to do. All right, Drown and Ichor. This one I had from when I had an Infect deck built just for fun, and it's just a good removal piece. I mean, -4/-4 kills a lot of stuff, and then it proliferates. It sucks that it's at sorcery speed, but it does so much for us, and it's so cheap that it's definitely worth the ad. Oko, Thief of Crowns. This guy is dirty. He's a dirty, dirty card, and if you don't want to run him, that's fine, but you know, sometimes you just got to play that way. He can make target artifact, his +1 is his most obnoxious thing, where you just make something an elk. You know, he's a 3-mana, make that thing an elk. Your commander's a problem, it's an elk now. And then you can -5 him if you want, exchange control, but really he's in here for that ridiculous +1 he gets. Then we run into our ramp plan here. You know, we got the classic talismans, Kodama's reach effects, really just the pretty standard ramp. We are running all of those. One interesting ad I have is I had a Great Henge. I know, I have a Great Henge. But it's just in here. You know, you could swap this out for any other rock, like a Felwar Stone or whatever. This just really helped synergize with, one, our creatures are so big that it just helps, and then it can ramp, get 2 power, or get 2 life, and then you, whenever a non-token creature gets a +1/+1 counter on it and it draws a card. This card is ridiculous. It needs to be reprinted more. You know, I'm not a big fan of cards like being so expensive. I want people to have access to game pieces, so hopefully we see something happen, but either way, if you have one, it's an excellent add to a deck like this. Cultivate, classic. Farseek, good stuff. 3 visits. And then Tato Farmer. Tato Farmer's a neat guy. You know, he's a 3-mana 1/4, so he's a good blocker. And he helps with, because we're going to have our own rad counters, or we're going to be milling ourselves. So just having an ability that whenever a land ETBs, you may get 2 rad counters. And then you can put a land in a graveyard that was milled this turn onto the battlefield under your control, tapped. So your opponent mills, you mill. You know, it helps get lands that might be missed. Lorien Revealed. I know there was a Harmonize. I swapped it out for Lorien Revealed because I think, you know, drawing 3 cards is, you know, it's still good, but having the island cycling is nice. You know, sometimes you have a stocked hand and you really need that island, so it's just nice to have that flexibility in your card draw. Guardian Project. I would have put this in here if it wasn't in here anyway, but love it. Get to keep the art on theme. And then whenever a non-token creature ETBs, it doesn't have the same name, draw some cards. Contaminated Drink. This one is just draw X, and then you lose half X rad counter, or you get half of X rad counters rounded up. So gives you some rad counters, draws cards. It's the stuff you want to do. Fathom Mage. This thing is so cool, and it works so good in here. I don't know why it wasn't included. It's such a cheap card. Either way, it's a 4-mana 1/1 with Evolve. And then, so whenever a +1/+1 counter is put on Fathom Mage, you draw a card. You'll put a lot on through other cards, but Fathom Mage will just put them on just through its own ability. Whenever a creature ETBs with greater power or toughness, it gets one, you draw cards. Super cool. Struggle for Project Purity. This card I've debated on just pulling because I mean, in my opinion, it's really, really strong. I mean, the ability to have everyone draw 1 card, you draw 3 cards, that's super nice. And then whenever a player attacks you with 1 or more creatures, that player gets twice that many rad counters. So I kept it in here just because it's flexibility, and there's just not that much stuff that gives rad counters. So it's nice to have. Inspiring Call. We're going to have a lot of creatures with +1/+1 counters on it, so being able to just draw cards in addition to it's an indestructible ability, that's nice. It's protection, and you draw, and it's got the Mothman. So everything we want. Silk Guard. I threw this in here because we have a lot of +1/+1 counter synergies. It puts them on them anyway. And then all aura, equipment, and modified creatures gain hexproof until end of turn. So it's a wide protection spell. Can really help us out. Mutational Advantage. I really like this card. It came in here. Permanents with counters on them gain hexproof and indestructible, and prevent all damage that would be dealt to those permanents this turn. And Proliferate. The text just never stops. Just does everything we need. Raoul, Troubleshooter. You know, definitely going to get some extra stuff here. He's an awesome zombie mutant rogue. Then once during each of your turns, you may cast a spell from among cards in your graveyard that were milled this turn. And then he can just tap mill cards. So he's mill. We love that. Speaking of mill, Mesmeric Orb. Whenever the orb becomes untapped, or whenever a permanent becomes untapped, but the orb is a permanent, but you know, whatever. Whenever any permanent becomes untapped, that permanent's controller mills 1 card. So it's super good, just 1 instant mills. It's so nice, really powerful card for 2 mana. This card's crazy for any sort of mill strategy. The Ancient One, so he can't attack or block unless there are 8 or more permanent cards in your graveyard, which really is pretty easy. And then you can pay 4, draw, discard, and then when you discard a card this way, they mill cards equal to its mana value. So it's targeted mill. It's a 2 mana, 8/8. Archive Trap. This one, I had an extra slot, so I wanted to try Archive Trap because I pulled the foil one. So it's definitely interesting because I think it being at instant speed can really help you because like maybe you swing at somebody, then you have 5 mana up and you're just missing like maybe 1 or 2 +1/+1 counters to command or damage someone out with the Mothman. And this 13 cards, they're going to mill at least a few non-land permanents. So it's not only a mill effect to impact a player, it can also be like an instant speed buffing effect if you have your commander out. The crabs! We get to run crabs. Love these boys. So Hedron Crab, this guy's whenever a land ETBs, you target a player and they mill 3 cards. So maybe, you know, whoever you think is the better player to hit non-lands. Maybe the Spellslinger deck or whatever. Ruin Crab. This one, same thing, just a little bit stronger in the defense, and instead of 1 person, it's everybody. So this is definitely the preferred option. Really, really awesome in these mill strategies, or any landfall strategy, really. Lily Bowen, Raging Grandma. She's super fun. I mean, you know, a 3 mana, 1 Vigilant Mutant Warrior. When it ETBs, you put 2 +1/+1 counters on it, and then at the beginning of your upkeep, double the number of +1/+1 counters on Lily if it's 16 or less power. Otherwise, you remove all but 1, and then you gain 1 life for each of those. So I will say it again, incremental life gain, or even this is like burst life gain. Just having it on cards, it can often just give you just that little bit of edge you needed to win. You know, so many commander games can be decided just by a little bit of life throughout the game. Drana. This card, I threw it in here just because it synergizes with +1/+1 counters. Also, it's a 3 mana flying first strike beater. You know, she's just strong. So if I'm going to be putting +1/+1 counters on things, this card seems like a good one to do that to. So whenever she deals damage to a player, put a +1/+1 counter on each attacking creature you control. So it spreads counters. It's a good target for counters. Excellent. Winding Constrictor. This dude, it's a 2/3. Whenever 1 or more counters be put on a permanent or an artifact or creature you control, you get that many +1. And then it also has, like, for you specifically, if you would get 1 or more counters, you get that many +1. So it helps give you more radiation, but that's fine. Hardened Scales. 1 mana, classic stuff. If you put a +1/+1 counter on something, it gets 2 of that instead. It gets that many +1. And it's got the art. It's got the Deathclaw, baby. Corpsejack Menace. I was so happy this was included because I was looking at mine. I was like, oh man, I didn't see it the first time I did a little spread through this deck. But happy it's in here. Gets to keep it on theme because it's just such a good card for these synergies. I mean, it's an even costed 4/4 for 4. And then if 1 or more +1/+1 counters on it were to be put on something, it gets twice that many. So it's really excellent enabler for making our dudes huge. So Marcus Mutant Mayor, he's in here just because, you know, he's on theme. And Vigilant Trampling, he's a 4/4 for 5. And then whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, draw a card if that creature has a +1/+1 counter on it. And if it doesn't, you put a +1/+1 on it. So really helps with that, making your dudes huge. Railway Brawler. He's another kind of flex slot I'm testing out at the moment. And whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, put X +1/+1 counters on it, where X is its power. So just like, okay, something's coming in, double its power. That's just insane. Or if we have any of our other synergistic pieces, it gets even more counters. Power Fist. This is something I'm also kind of debating on. I know it can be really good. It's just, oftentimes I play it, I'm just trying to play more cards out, and I never have the incentive to equip it, but it does have really, really powerful effects, where it gives your big boy trample, and it doubles its +1/+1 counters on it. So if you already have a winning state, it's really good to just really cement those big boys into, or maybe make something that isn't super good to use removal on, that they need to use removal on, because it's too big now. Branching Evolution. This card's excellent. Happy it just keeps getting reprinted. If 1 or more +1/+1 counters on it would be put on a creature, twice that many get put on instead. Super good. Infesting Radroach. This is a really good card in the way that, you know, it's a flying radiation giver. when it deals combat damage to a player, they get that many rad counters. Imagine you put that power fist on a roach. It's not only super cool, it's also very effective. You just start making them huge, and then whenever an opponent mills a card, if he's dead, you bounce him to your hand. So really good. The Master Transcendent. This was the other commander you could choose. I think this one, if you were to take him out of the deck and build something like specifically built around him, he could be a very powerful reanimation style commander. Just because of his tap, put target creature in a graveyard that was milled this turn onto the battlefield under your control. It's a green mutant with base power 3/3. So I think it definitely has potential, but it's just in here for extra synergy. You know, whenever ETBs, target player gets 2 rad counters, and then he can just, you know, steal some stuff from time to time. Vault 12, the Necropolis. So this one's really nice. You know, getting to play a Vault in our Fallout deck is really cool. And it does everything we want to be doing, right? Each player gets 3 rad counters. Cool. It makes a board state where X is the number of rads that you have. And then you put 2 counters and everything that's a zombie or a mutant. You know who's a mutant? Mothman, baby. Mothman's a mutant. He'll be huge. He'll be hitting people with those big, fluffy little wings. Screeching Scorch Beast. I mean, honestly, even this wasn't on theme. Scorch Beast is just such a cool... I like the Scorch Beast. But either way, he's a bat mutant. And whenever... He's a flying menace, dude. And whenever he attacks... Not even going to have to hit anybody either. Whenever he attacks, each player gets 2 rad counters. And then whenever 1 or more non-land cards are milled, you make zombies. So really, really good synergy. And doing this only once each turn doesn't matter that much for us because they mill on each of their turns. So that's fine. Bloatfly Swarm. This guy's super fun in the way that he's just, bloatflies are annoying. And you get to be annoying. So he's a 4-costed, essentially 5/5, because he gets 5 +1/+1 counters on him. When he be dealt any damage, you remove that many +1/+1 counters on it, and then you give each player a rad counter for each +1/+1 counter removed this way. So he's a great decentivizing blocker. It's like, alright, swing at me. Here you go. And then you can just keep proliferating counters on him, making him stronger, so you can take more damage, give out more rad counters. Really cool. Nightkin Ambusher. This is really here because of its, it's just a 4/4 for 4 with ward, and when it ETBs, it gives 4 rad counters out, which is awesome, and it can't be blocked as long as defending player has a rad counter. Just a single rad counter, which will pretty much always be the case. Mirelurk Queen. Big crab lady. So, Vigilant, when it ETBs, target player gets 2 rad counters. Then whenever 1 or more non-land cards are milled, draw a card. And then put a +1/+1 counter on the Queen. Triggers once each turn, but that's great. You know, we have rad counters distributed. Cool. We're going to make this Queen massive. Thrumming Bird. Classic proliferating lady bird thing. Excellent card. You know, I love it. It's just a flying 1/1. It gets in, proliferates. And that's another reason why we have Vexing Radgull here. Pretty much another copy almost of this. It's a 1/2 for 2. And whenever it deals combat damage to a player, they either get 2 rad counters if they don't have any, but if they do, you proliferate. So it can start the train, or it can keep the train rolling. Conductor and caboose. That's a good rule. That's a good bird. Radstorm. This came in the deck, not this version, but I was able to get this one from somebody when we were playing there. It's just Storm Proliferate. I haven't had a chance to really get this to go off yet, but it's just nice. You're just being able to get all your +1/+1 counters, everybody's rad counters up. It's just a good little end thing you get to do. It's instant speed, so you can do it whenever you think it'd be good. Inexorable Tide. This one, it's definitely more of I'm not a huge fan of spells that don't do anything when they come out. They just add on top of things you're gonna do. But this one really adds a lot to what our overall game plan. So I was fine to include it. Plus, it stays on theme. And, whenever you cast a spell, proliferate. So you pay 5, and then you just get to keep proliferating. And look at that dude. So you get to see cool stuff. Hancock, Ghoulish Maya. This guy, he's in here, just a big synergy piece, really. Each other zombie or mutant, we really run a lot of mutants, is what we're going to run into. But he's in here just because they get +X/+X, where X is the number of counters on Hancock, and then he has Undying. So he's just annoying. He's a big beater, and is annoying. Feral Ghoul. This is probably one of the best cards, at least in my opinion, just to do some really cool stuff. He's a menacing 2/2 for 3, and then whenever another creature you control dies, he gets stronger. And then when he dies, each opponent gets a number of rad counters equal to his power. So base, if he just dies right off the bat, everyone except you gets 2 rad counters. But if you just dump a ton of stuff on him, could you imagine? You're just like, I'm going to power fist, I'm going to swing, I'm going to double his just one, if one or two creatures die, it's crazy. And then he's huge, and then it's like, well, what do? You have to exile him now. And then he's a menace beater, so he creates a huge problem, I think. Cathedral Acolyte. This guy's protection. You know, each creature with a counter now has Ward 1. Ward is annoying, and people don't like dealing with it, so he'll probably get killed before your other stuff does. And it's each creature, so you put a counter on him, and he has Ward now. And then he can put counters on things. It's nuts. Can't put one on target creature that entered the battlefield this turn. So, can't put it on himself, but he can do some cool stuff. Kodama of the West Tree. Kodama is insane. You know, he's a 3-cost reach, gives all of your +1/+1 or however else modified creatures trample, and then whenever a modified creature you control deals damage, go ramp. That's awesome. So powerful. This is just more synergy. Glowing one. This is nice. 3 mana, has Death Touch. He's a good little rattlesnake boy. And then whenever he deals combat damage to a player, they get 4 rad counters. So it's like, okay, you can either lose your dude to my little 2/2, or you get 4 rad counters. And then whenever a player mills a card, you gain a life. That's a player. That's me too. That's awesome. With non-land cards specifically. Strong, brutish Thespian. I love the Thespian man. And either way, he's awesome. You know, 6 mana for a 7/7. Little steep. He's probably at the higher end of our curve here. But he comes with Ward 2, so he protects himself. And then whenever he is dealt damage, you get 3 rad counters and put 3 +1/+1 counters on him. So it's like, okay, I radiate, which is cool for me. And then he gets stronger. And you gain life rather than lose life from radiation. Gaining life when people mill cards is fine. This is turning my life loss into life gain. Excellent. Then we're getting into our fun lands. So Nesting Grounds. I love that it got reprinted. You get to have the stupid mosquito thing. I hate that guy. But either way, the Sting Wings. You get to pay 1, move a counter from target permanent to another target permanent. This is really just kind of in there to just move some stuff around. You know, put a +1/+1 counter on whatever. Move some stuff. That's fine. Mariposa military base. It can become you can have it ETB tapped. If you do, you get 2 rad counters. You can pay 5, draw a card, and it costs 1 less for each rad counters you have. I mean, it's kind of like a more fitting war room for us. You know, it's nice to just have that draw card ability and have it cost a lot less if we're radiated. Then for our lands, we're going to run our Exotic Orchard, our Path of Ancestry, Command Tower, and Opulent Palace. These are what we're running to have access to all 3 of our colors. Then, if we're going to look into our Overgrown Stadium, Overgrown Tomb, Viridescent Bog, Woodland Cemetery, Underground Mortuary, Tainted Wood. If you can't tell, these are a lot of the colors we really like to have access to. You know, green is so important early game. Just if we draw any ramp cards, we want to be able to cast them. So definitely want green in our color mixtures. Then we're going to run Tainted Isle, Drowned Catacomb, Choked Estuary, Sunken Hollow, and Darkwater Catacomb. These are all of our dimmer lands. Get to keep a lot of on-theme stuff here, which is really, really cool. Loved all the dual color lands that we got access to. For these, we're going to run Breeding Pool, Overflowing Basin, Hedge Maze. I would definitely run more of these if I pulled the right colors when I was pulling stuff like that. And then Hinterland Harbor. So definitely got a lot of cool stuff in terms of those lands. And then I did love that the Fallout decks came with full art Fallout lands. So we get to run our little Dogmeat Forest. We get to run a few of those. So we're running 5 forests as our basics. Then when we get into these, we're going to run a few plains. We're going to have 5 of those. Really even costed stuff. And then we're going to run some more sick arts here in our 5 swamps. So we get the Fell Beasts, I think, is that what that is? Or the Scorch Beasts. And then we get more dog action going on. So that is my take on this little moth boy. You know, get radiated, radiate people, have a lot of fun, mill some cards. Nothing's better than when you mill somebody's like Deflecting Swat or Fierce Guardianship or whatever. That's one of the benefits of playing mill. And you get to play this cool moth dude, you know? You get to be a moth. Really fun stuff. So I highly recommend it if you're into Sultai, you're into +1/+1 counters. But you know, if you're not into this, I have a lot of other deck techs on my channel, so feel free to check it out. Just did one on a few different things, actually. I did Tetsun, did some other stuff with like Garuda, really fun stuff. So if you like this content, please remember to hit a like on this video, leave a comment on maybe some other mill stuff, because this is definitely an interesting strategy. So I'm definitely open to any suggestions, comments, anything like that. And then subscribe if you want more deck techs, if you want to be the first one to hear about some other weird thing that we put together on this channel. That'd be great. Either way, I'll see you on the next one. Thanks. Bye.